Here we go. It's time for another podcast. This one's for 1029, and it should be and is a beautiful day. It's a much smaller crew today, and many of the big men are not here, which will definitely change the tactics. And let's see how people do. So we come to the stop, and this week things are much better, and no one makes the corner without pretty much coming to a virtual stop. Greg and Tony are up front, and I can tell that there's a little bit of lethargy here because people are not keen to go to the front. And this is the basically the tactics of the non-players. They just want to sit in and try to make it to the end because that's their goal. Some of us want to work because we don't get any faster just like sitting in. And frankly, my heart rate isn't up sitting in. It's basically like my Garmin tells me at the end of many of these rides, unproductive. So I take up the front with Joel, and we are working fairly hard. Not crazy, but there's definitely good wattage being put out. So there's a headwind today, and this is going to make for everybody pretty much staying together. So you can see I'm in the upper twos, mid twos, 300 watts, and feeling pretty comfortable. Heart rate 162, which is something that I could pretty much hold all day, and it pretty much shows that I'm not under a lot of stress, but it is creeping up. So Greg sitting in there fairly comfortably. There's Ian. I can see Brandon back there. Justin kind of loafing along. So we're heading east, and there's a slight crosswind coming out of the south. So people are in a tiny little mini echelon, at least those people that realize it, or those that might want to work, they're just sitting out in the wind. So I see that Justin back there is like sitting in the wind a little bit. Greg's definitely in the wind, but the pace isn't that high. And like I said, a lot of people want to get work out of this, so they're not in it for purely tactical reasons. So I'm sitting at the front with Joel, and it seems like we're just sitting out there forever, and people are just totally content. Maybe it's because we're putting up enough wattage that no one can go around, or they just are, I don't know, just happy to sit in. I see Tony back there with one of the big engines in the group, but without Matthew Michaels there to like excite a few things, and Ben, definitely going to be different. But Joel and I are at the front, and we're having a pretty good time. As you can see, there we go, nothing in front of me, and people are just content to just sit back. And it seems like I've been out here for a while. It seems like I've been out here for like 2 or 3 minutes, and no one is making a move. A little bit of a hill there, the wattage goes up, Brandon standing up, Greg standing up, some people just sitting in. Looks like somebody way back there maybe struggling a little bit because of the acceleration, but 300 plus watts on that one, and maybe that would soften up people. So I've had enough. Time to go to the back. Joel seems to still want to be out there, and you can see the flag showing somewhat of where the wind is actually blowing. So I kind of settle in back here. I don't want to be too far back because I'll get gapped off by somebody. And it's pretty clear that like the group isn't that organized yet. And Joel comes back. Greg takes up the mantle, but Carrie is not happy with the pace, which is somehow, it's only 19 right now, so he's going to go drive this. So this should definitely amp things up a little bit. So there was somewhat of an acceleration because of that hill, and now my heart rate is up, into the 170s, where I'm like, okay, I don't have a whole lot more, so I'm just trying to think what's going on. So Brandon's starting to fall off here. That always concerns me. Not certain why Tony is out where he is, because he's just bleeding energy. Now, if that was someone else, maybe Dean or someone with a little bit of group savvy, I would be thinking he's trying to start a second echelon. Let's go in and start the second echelon, because I know like Tony would have done that, but that like just didn't happen. And I'm certain that with Carrie's pace out there, Tony's not going to be able to match that for very long. And as you can see, he settles in and finds himself some shelter in the group. But why he was sitting out there, I'm not really certain, unless it was to get a second echelon going, and maybe nobody took him up on that. But I'm not certain that that's the savvy that was actually occurring there. So Greg pushing at the front pretty hard, 23 miles an hour, and even sitting back here, I'm at like 200 and plus watts, and my heart rate is slowly coming down. So at 166, I'm fairly recovered at this point. Where if there was an acceleration, it would be pretty comfortable for me to try to go and match that. I'm kind of sitting back a little ways. The echelon's a little squirrely. It looks aligned at times, but there's a couple of like little jags in there where the pace slows down and people make this quick move to avoid the rider in front. But as you can see, it's pretty steady, and it's that wind that's up there. I think last week at the same point in the ride, we were probably doing like 27 miles an hour, but with that little bit of a headwind and without Ben and Matthew, it's a totally different game. And this is why that attack occurred early last week, is because of people just sitting in, not wanting to do anything. I'm looking at my heart rate now. It's coming down into the low 160s, which means I'm really recovered, which means basically these people back here aren't doing any work, aren't thinking about doing any work, and are just wanting to sit in. And, and frankly, right now, I'm getting kind of bored. And this is definitely, there's no training going on here whatsoever for me. And I'm just kind of sitting in and kind of observing to see who's doing what. I mean, the good news is that this is a nice echelon. And people know they got some savvy and they know how to save some energy. I'm wishing there would have been some rotation where people wishing to do some work, but that doesn't happen. But like Kerry at the front, and he brings the speed up a little bit. Now we're talking 26 miles an hour, and there's some work for that little bit of an acceleration where now I'm starting to work, but my heart rate is still coming down, like in the 150s. 150s, I have never seen a heart rate for me that low in one of these sprint zones. And it's because of basically the relatively lack of attacking and the headwind is just keeping the group together, plus the large amount of shelter that's occurring back here. So it's like la di da, more of the same old, same old, same old. And I'm kind of thinking that somebody should do something to go to the front. Between Greg, Joel, Carrie, and myself, nobody's really done anything. So now that my heart rate's in the 150s, I've had enough of this. Uh, we've got to do something. I mean, you can see how easy it is. No disrespect to Brandon or anything, but every freaking body is here. And that shouldn't be if anybody's willing to do something. Too many people just sitting in, not wanting to work hard. So now I'm at the front, 400 watts, trying to hold a decent pace. And now, like, Tony goes super flipping hard here. And this is a pace that is not going to be able to be sustained. In fact, you can see he went so hard, either this is an attack, which I don't think it is, or he just thought he was trying to bring a lot of people with him. In any case, it did shake the event up, and it's maybe causing some separation here. And I think this is when I think Brandon got unhitched from that one. So now my heart rate's in the 170s because, I was throwing down a lot of wattage up front, and then Tony made that strong attack. So, but I know Tony's not going to be able to hold it. And as hard as that was, the pace is just going to slow down. Because look at this, 19 miles an hour. That attack was too hard, and there was nobody else willing to take up the mantle. And because of the timing of it, both Carrie and myself were at the back, and we were probably the few of the people that might have been able to take the mantle up and make something happen here, but we're stuck back here. So it looks like Greg at the front, trying to keep things high, but like everybody's still here. Slight double echelon here. I think Joel and Justin have it right. And I'm kind of surfing the back, just trying to bring my heart rate back here. And it's coming down slowly but surely. But everyone's together. So Greg doing his turn at the front, which is what I like to see. Like Ian, it's been like sitting in, not doing any work, which is cool. I mean, that's a good tactic. And now Carrie makes the move. Now Ian tries to go with Carrie, which is a good move. Me being back here, I know Ian's going to blow up. And I'm gonna get stuck behind like somebody having to work out, trying to make my move through the front, which is somewhat frustrating. But it was a good move by Ian, so I'm able to make the juncture. Heart rate in the 170s, still putting out a good amount of power. And then Dean goes pretty hard. At this point, you didn't see it, but I put on a little bit of power, went to go, and the line wasn't there because Ian was there, and so I just figured I would just give up, because I missed that one moment. Carey's caught back. He's done a shit ton of work, and we just missed this last gapping off by Dean, whom I didn't really see go to the front until the end. Really good tactic, but at this point, like any of the big men can probably win it doing that. Now, I'm not going to be cocky. No, I am going to be cocky. If I had sat in the entire time, if Carey had sat in the entire time, you don't want to sprint against me, because chances are you're not going to win that one. But I want to work. I don't want my Garmin to tell me that my work was unproductive for the day, because this is not my A race. This is some good training, some good fun, some good group practice, and that's all I got to say about that. There's Justin. Not certain he's in as good a shape as he's been in previous years. I did not see him go to the front. But everyone has their COVID experiences, so the fitness is not quite what it would be normally. So make it to the turnaround. Dean wins that one, and a good time was had by all. Definitely, I need to force myself to the front sometimes. And if my teammates were there, if it was Tony and Matthew, or people kitted out in the old school team, and I was on the front, I would not be drifting back. I would drift back to my teammates that are in the front, force myself into that echelon, and be like, it's my teammates up here. I deserve to be here. I am not going back to get gapped off by you guys. Anyway, it was fun. And we'll do it again next week.